Okay, so uh, this comes from the Society of Professional Journalists, and it said these are tips to spot the fake, vet the author, what is the authority, know your source, go beyond the headline, listen to your gut, and before you post, check the host. And that means if you're on Facebook, so you're on Facebook, somebody, and not everybody uses Facebook, whatever, on social media, somebody's posted something and you look at it and somebody's posted something from somebody else that they know. So when I do that, I always click on that person's name and I go and look at them and say, did this person really write it or did they post it from somebody else? And if I can't figure out who actually wrote something, I don't repost it myself. I then go outside. I use what the crash course talks about of lateral thinking. I will go outside and independently go into Google and put the information in and see if I can find it from other sources, because that's how you verify that information. Go ahead, Karen.
You know, it's interesting because one of the challenges, don't you think, Catherine, that we face is in using now so often Google as our single fact-checking source or as one of our major fact-checking sources. Google, of course, has algorithms that will stack what you see first. So
Right.
even that is a challenge. How deep do you go in Google?
And that is a challenge. And I went to a wonderful seminar with Amy Quinn, who's here with us yesterday, where she was talking about the Google algorithm. So there's a number of ways you do that. One of the ways you do that is you have places that you automatically go to check. So if I'm checking a news source, and we're going to talk about this in a second, I will often go to mediabiasfactcheck.org because that checks out a specific media source. Or if it's something on there and I know that it might be an urban legend, I will go to Snopes. If it's political, I will go to politifact.com. I will also look things up in Wikipedia. I will also look things up in other news sources. So I don't just go to my first Google picks. I also go to other sources. Wikipedia is a good first source because Wikipedia at least will cite its sources. So that's another good way of doing it. That's a good question. The next thing that we have here is this is from a wonderful article called 10 Ways of Spotting Misinformation Online. And the League of Women Voters of Park Ridge created these nice, easy to use and share PowerPoints. Spotting misinformation online. Did it immediately make you feel angry, fearful, disgusted, or elated? I'm going to add that because sometimes you think, oh, got him. So when you see something that provokes intense emotions, especially outrage, it's best to take a breath. Okay, I'm just going to say this. If you're on social media, do not play social media quizzes and personality quizzes. Do not do it. It is unsafe from a security perspective. However fun they might be, whatever kind of cat you might be, imagine it yourself and make your own quiz. So was it too good to believe or too bad to believe? That's another clue that you may have misinformation or disinformation. And does it confirm what you already thought? Yes, I knew I was right. And often we say we knew we were right without reading the whole article, because a lot of times they will create headlines or pictures that will lure you in. If there is a lot of grammatical and spelling errors, that is likely going to be a bot or someone from another organization, another country whose English isn't very good. That's a real big clue. Okay, let's talk about memes. They can be cute, kittens, whatever. I rarely share them anymore because they're not always usually true. And even when they are true, they're not completely true. And so if I'm going to share something, I will say what I feel about it rather than sharing somebody else's view. What is the source? We talked about that a minute ago. Who said it and what was their source? So in other words, not just what was the source, oh, CNN said it, but who did CNN quote? And remember, one of the really big problems right now is we're losing local journalism, local local papers that are owned locally. We're losing those local journalists, and that was the source of much of what was being reported in the national news. And as we lose those journalists, we're losing a lot of connection to local issues, as well as checks on local officials. Is there a hidden agenda in the story? We're going to talk that again and have you fact check. So those are just some quick tours. The Navigating Digital Information class is something that we're thinking about creating a 10-week program where we're going to go through. These are under 14-minute videos that provide the opportunity to practice specific skills. So one of the things that I'm going to back up for a second. One of the things that is a privilege for me is I grew up in a family where my father was a journalist, where we were involved with politics. I started doorbelling for my father when I was 5. I was a page in the state Senate when I was 12. I ran for and won a public office when I was 22, and I was an elector in 1992. And then I became nonpartisan. Now I work for the League of Women Voters. So I have a lot of privilege, and I was trained as a journalist, and I have all these skills. Most people don't have those skills or that background. So a lot of the things they talk about in this class are things that I learned when I was a small girl, but a lot of other people didn't learn. And so one of the things about going through either on your own, looking at the videos, and they talk fast, so you might have to watch the video twice, but they're very entertaining, is that you get a chance to practice in your mind the skills, and you get to think about it more expansively. So it is a really good resource. Okay, here's some fact-checking places. Have you guys heard of Media Bias Fact Check? It's a wonderful website where they have a process where they look at particular media sources. They look at a number of articles and they place them on a bias. And bias is not bad. It just says that this person is biased on a scale of right to left, least biased to most biased on a scale. And then they say how factual it is. And then they give you all kinds of information about where they look on the World Freedom Record, their press ranking, who funds them, what their website is. You get a lot of information. And any source that I use, I go to Media Bias Fact Check to find out where they are. And you can be using a source that's somewhat biased, but if they report factually and you know the bias, then that's a way of checking information across various sources. And they also do reports on on a whole bunch of websites that are pseudoscience or conspiracy, places that are satire, and it's really a wonderful source, and it's one that I highly recommend. And this is the chart that they use. So they go from people who are basically the least biased, so people like the AP, the BBC, Reuters, USA Today. And then sometimes these move on their chart based on new and updated information. So this is from fact checking yourself and others. This is from the Calling Bullshit outlines. Rule number 1, be correct. And that means read more than the headline. Headlines are not often written by the authors. I hate it because when I used to write in journalism, my dad used to, you write your piece and then the headline is something to draw somebody in and it may not be really related to the content. So you really need to read the article or listen to the podcast or listen to the thing. Double check your facts. This is if you want to share something. If you're really not sure, check it by a friend, preferably a friend who's maybe not in the same value set as you are. And be charitable. This is really, really important. Be charitable.